Good morning. I want to welcome each one of you NANOE governors to Columbia, South Carolina. Come on, somebody ought to say, hey! You are in the middle of a historic event. Today, we have our IPO, the initial public offering of a new way to do nonprofits. That's right, we're reconsidering everything. And this group right here with us will make the difference. You will be in history as the one who charted a new direction for nonprofits and for caring everywhere. Let's give yourselves a hand. We open every meeting with prayer, and let us do that now. Let us pray. O God, merciful and mighty, we love you today as you have loved us. We love our neighbor and we care. And we, in every day and everything that we do, want to fulfill that request, that demand, that command in Matthew 25. To give those who are thirsty something to drink, to give those who are hungry something to eat, and those aliens and refugees, give them a home to come to, and those who are naked and homeless, to give them clothing. God, we accept your challenge and your call, and from this day on, we not only will give others an abundant life, but we would rest in abundance in you. And we all ask this in his name. And those who love the Lord say, amen. Thank you so much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to witness the presentation of one who is so wonderful and has done so much. I present to you America's volunteer, Charlotte Berry.
Thank you, Redfern. And let me say what a joy it is to be able to welcome you to Columbia, South Carolina, or better still, should I say, famously hot Columbia, South Carolina. Jimmy asked me to give a few comments about my philosophy of philanthropy, and suffice it to say that I have been involved with philanthropy and with the world of social work for many, many years. In the 60s and 70s, I became chair of Red Cross and United Way at different times and felt very strongly about the leadership opportunities. And I know all of you out there also understand your great leadership roles and how much it means to everybody. So throughout that period, I started out, and many of you don't remember, door-to-door solicitation, because that's not done today like it used to be. United Way used to absolutely have a residential area where I chaired and went out door-to-door to get money for United Way. So all of the changes that have come about have been exciting for me to see. What you're going to be doing today is thinking about change, how it affects not only you, but the many organizations throughout the world. And it's exciting to me to hear and see what decisions you will come up with. And this is your meeting too. After hearing all these wonderful speakers, you're going to be challenged, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of this. So today, it's my pleasure to think in terms of leadership, how we can make a difference by taking challenging roles, by becoming chairman of boards, but maybe in the future changing the way we do business. So I want to really thank you for the opportunity to share very briefly that it can be a lifetime of giving back, a lifetime of being challenged to give your skills, your talents, and your treasure to your life's work, which I feel is philanthropy in general. And now I have to say a word about Jimmy LaRose. He has been a longtime friend, over 20 years, and I have seen his amazing rise in the world of not-for-profits. I think that with his ability as an author, he is creative, dynamic, vivacious, and I am very, very pleased to have him as a friend. And I want you all to realize that all of us here are so eager to meet you, to be a part of what you're doing these next 2 days. And I just thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to say a few words about leadership, starting as a very young person and continuing all of your life. Thank you so much. Love being with you. Hope to meet you.
A true Southern belle. I'm looking for my cue, but let me give it and take it. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may know the name Patrick Henry. Some of you are familiar with Crispus Attucks. Some of you may know Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, and even the name Steve Jobs. These are men who form a revolution, a change in the way we do things. Perhaps you know Alexander Graham Bell. Perhaps you know the name Edison. And at every one of these junctures, life was different for mankind. We could not go back. This day, in Columbia, South Carolina, we will meet and work with such a person who will change the way we do business forever. If you are the director of a nonprofit organization working too hard, working too long, and not receiving enough compensation, if you are giving your best and hard to attract staff, well, today that ends. We break the mold and start the revolution. And the man who's been formulating this for 25 years, let's welcome him now, Mr. Jimmy LaRose.
Wow, you've been waiting to do that. What is this governorship thing all about? I was nominated as a governor. Friends, it is one thing for Dan Pallotta to do a TED Talk that 5 million people have viewed, the top 10 TED Talks of all time. It is another thing for Jimmy LaRose to have written a book called Reimagining Philanthropy that has been challenging donors directly to give charities really what they need. Not their money as much as their mind and their enterprise model and their thought and what's worked for them. These are important things. But today, the next 2 days, a group of peers, instead of it just being about a TED Talk, instead of it being about a book, we are going to establish a series, a new set of guidelines for tomorrow's nonprofit, which we codify as governors, so that we can take into the field, that we can prove empirically that these new ways, these better ways, we have established the fact that the nonprofit sector is a non-growth sector. What does it look like if we come together and we give our CEOs cover? It's not about a TED Talk, it's not about a book. There's a series of best practices that we can take back to our nonprofits, and as governors, we shall choose to codify them. That's why this governorship thing is real. Thank you for making this investment. You have each spent thousands of dollars personally to take the time to be here. Would you please give yourselves a hand? Thank you for being in this room today. So here's how it works. Let's see if we can take today and further shift thinking, immerse you, if I may. Can we immerse you into some new and separate and critical thought? And then tomorrow, we reset this room with air walls and working groups, and we collectively evaluated each one of those new guidelines under Dr. Robinson's leadership and administration. Today is transformation, tomorrow is work. I am going to review the 8 sections of Reimagining Philanthropy in 30 minutes. Promise I won't keep you long. This could be one of the bases of the guidelines that we'll be entertaining tomorrow. Let's talk about the motive. It could be that we could agree on this. So I present to you an axiom for your consideration. If a person or a thing possesses life, it is better that for a determinate period of time that that thing or person should live. It should be alive. And that if it is alive and during that finite span, and inherent to its animation, there is a hierarchy of needs that, if met, they dignify the life being lived. Could we agree on that? Could we agree, simply put, that it is better that one lives, and if they live, they experience a life worth living? Most of us sit in this room actualized, if I may run to Maslow. We are self-actualized. But the reason that we are here is we have decided to give our vocational time to ensuring other people experience life worth living. I get to work with the finest people in the world. Never in the course of human history has a society produced enterprise whose sole and only purpose is to benefit the public good. And you are the chief stewards of that public good. It is no small thing. It is a high call. Ensuring that other people experience life worth living. If there is a payoff, here's what it could be. Here's the payoff. I can't believe I'm about to do this. It's only the second time I've done this. I've shared this. What happens when you have a crisis pregnancy center in the room on this side and you have Planned Parenthood over here? Because we live in a constitutional democracy, we can enjoy the gift of confident pluralism. See, I believe and I respect the idea that each of you, no matter what you're doing, are wanting to ensure that another person experiences life worth living. I am half glass full as I approach you. I could even disagree with what you're doing, but the beautiful thing is I still get to respect you. And that's the payoff when you put a group of diverse people in a room with all sorts of different backgrounds and different political views in this day and age and different theological walks. The common thread between all of us is that we get up every day vocationally to ensure another person has as good a life as we do. And for that, I love you. And that's why we have decided that we can, together, in a diverse way, figure out a better way to work and accomplish this great vision. When I'm asked the question, why charity? The whole idea of needs being met, kindness is being shared. Isn't that a great line? Kindness is being shared. Dreams coming true, it transports me to a very special place. For all of this is about mercy. Mercy, 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 mercy. I crave it for myself. I've ministered its power to others. I meditate on it and I am healed. Mercy makes my way straight. And here is the definition of mercy, 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 mercy that I've been meditating on. And it goes like this. Mercy is God's supply system for every need, everywhere. Mercy is that kindness, compassion, and tenderness which has a passion to participate in and suffer with other persons' ills and evils in order to relieve, in order to heal, in order to restore. Mercy provides the needed good of life to bring to peace, to keep in peace. It is the glow of love. It is the true anointing. Mercy, 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 mercy. You are mercy doers. You are great need meeters. You chase after a need and you meet it. And if not for mercy, and friends, I have been the object of mercy. I have been the object of mercy of people in this room. Do you know there's only one word that's better than mercies? Are you ready? Are you ready for this? A word that's better than mercy. Tender mercies. Wow. If mercy's good, how good are tender mercies? Friends, these are the things, because we're going to have to go some places where we disagree. I'm hoping these are the things that we could agree on, that there could be some things that bind us together, that make possible the harder work that we have to do, that make possible the misunderstood persecution we may endure. Friends, we're throwing up flares. You know, you can't send out an email that says, make your executive director chairman of the board. Don't worry, she already is. You can't send that out without getting pushed back. But no, please know that behind all of this, there is a reason. And it is to be able to deliver mercy better. And that's where our problem is. Why charity? Why are we here this morning? For me, it's simple. We have a mercy delivery problem. Mercy relies on charity to take it places. Charity is her carriage. Charity is the vehicle whereby which mercy is ensured to get to her destination. Mercy, charity. Now, having established the fact that we have shared values, let us agree that money is not a moral or an immoral thing. Let me help you with this if possible. This is where all of a sudden we get in trouble, because we're about to talk about money as though it is a moral issue, and it is not. Is oxygen a moral issue? It's a need, someone said. I got a witness. It's a need. Let me tell you about oxygen. I was with all of this group here, down here front. They were all in my home. They were in my home, year and a half, 2 years ago. You were in everybody, so many people in my home. And everybody thought I had the flu, and I did not have the flu. They then said I had bronchitis. I did not have bronchitis. They then diagnosed me with pneumonia. I did not have pneumonia. When they determined that I had Legionnaire's disease, and let me tell you how it works. Have you ever heard about a person that may be elderly, dying from complications of pneumonia? I'm going to share with you how it works. Because the Legionnaires ate up and made solid and infected 90% of my lungs, both of them. One lung had 10% left. So friends, I wasn't getting the air that I needed. Here's what happened next. Because I wasn't getting the oxygen that I needed, my blood pressure dropped to 50/30. And when your blood pressure drops to 50/30, your vital organs do not get the supply that they need, and they begin to shut down. And the first one that failed for me were my kidneys. And I went into septic shock, and I slipped into a coma because I didn't have the air that I needed to breathe. Friends, your first pursuit as a nonprofit is not mission. Money is more important than mission. Oxygen is more important than your children. Oxygen is more important than whether or not the people that you love go to college. It's a simple matter of the order of things. We get in trouble for this line. Money is more important than mission. I promise you it is. Because if you don't have money first, you don't have a mission. And the more money that you have, the bigger your mission is and the more effective you become. And the difficulty is we do not prioritize capacity building as nonprofits. We don't prioritize it first. And is it because we are wrong or we're evil or anything? No. It's because our hearts are so big for the need that we rush after the need to meet it. But we rush after that need at the expense of actually being able to make a difference because we don't prioritize capacity building. So, if money is more important than mission, for without money we are of no effect. Therefore, now get ready for it. If money is more important than mission, then donors are more important than clients, causes, or people. When I talk about donors are more important, let's just define what that means. If you have a government contract, then the government is your customer. The government is your donor. If you have social enterprise and you have a thrift store, then the general public is your donor. They're your income stream. It could be that you have fees for service, tuition, or you're a hospital. It could be that the student is your donor or your customer. It could be that for the sake of the next 2 days, we're going to be talking about all those income streams. But for the sake of my conversation, through reimagining philanthropy, I will be speaking about the philanthropic donor. Donors are more important than clients, issues, or cause. So who is your primary customer? Nonprofits mistakenly think that the student, the homeless person, the rainforest is their customer. And those are not your customer, and it's pretty simple. Would you like to know why? Somebody please ask me why. Why? Thank you for asking. Because they ain't got no money. That's why they're not your customers. And somehow we have morally decided that having a program that serves an indigent family is more important, is more valuable. It's even lowbrow to consider maybe we should actually programmatically have a system in place at our nonprofit that cares for donors first, that ensures there's a healthy flow of income. Once again, what's the problem? Why are we here? Mercy, 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 mercy. Money, 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 and it's okay. Both of them together are what we're going to use to design a heroic mission of scale that is so large, that it eradicates a problem so completely that money chases after it. Donors are your customers. Donors pay for the opportunity to participate in the transformation of a people. They spend their money to advance an issue. They purchase a stake in your meaningful cause. And friends, tragically, here's what we do. We treat donors like they're ATM machines that are outside the organization that we wouldn't visit if we didn't have to. That there's some sort of magical PIN number, we call it a banquet or a golf outing. And we push these buttons, the money will come out, and then we can go back to doing what's best and what's important. It is so lowbrow, it is so pedestrian for us to tend to donors. Tragically, friends, I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not entirely a stretch. Our obligation is to provide those donors. What does it look like to be donor-driven? I am fond of saying that money chases after ideas, and there will always be generous people who will amply support your great dream if it's backed by a sound plan. But did you hear what I said? Money chases after ideas. That heroic mission of scale. Doc is going to help us define scale. For some of us, scale, instead of serving the homeless in our community, we are going to decide that as a matter of scale, we are going to eliminate homelessness among seniors in St. Augustine, Florida, St. Johns County. We can decide that's what our scale is, and until we have completely eradicated that problem at that scale, we have not accomplished our mission. And what's great about determining the scale, you can come up with a dollar amount. You find out how much it costs to get to this particular goal. And with that great goal, a donor can look at it and begin to say, oh, they've asked me to give, normally I give money just because they're nice people, okay? Once in a while, I give them money because they're nice people and they're doing a good thing. But if somebody would go to a donor and give them the gift of a big idea that actually could change everything, friends, that's rushing in and choosing to meet the donor's needs. We must design heroic missions that eradicate problems at such a scale they attract big bet philanthropy. Of the 1.5 million nonprofits, 1.48 million nonprofits have missed it on these issues that I've been talking about. Someone please ask me how I know. Thank you for asking. Because the nonprofits in this room have not included donors in their statements of mission. They are your primary customer, and you're actually putting together mission statements that appeal to more non-customers coming in that you can't afford to pay for in the first place. That's what we're doing. That's normative. Let me give you an example. We've done the research. Unless you have the word community in your mission statement, most of the nonprofits in this room are in that group of 1.48 million. Here's a common mission statement, common. Harvest Town Food Bank exists to provide our communities hurting, hungry, and homeless the clothing, food, and nutritional care they so desperately need. Could we agree that that may be a normative mission statement? I'll read it again. Harvest Town Food Bank exists to provide our communities hurting, hungry, and homeless the clothing, food, and nutritional care they so desperately need. What if it looked like this? Harvest Town Food Bank provides donors, volunteers, and advocates the organization they require to serve our communities hurting, hungry, and homeless. Okay. Friends, this is an aha moment, right? Common mission statement, proper mission statement. But do you understand that what I'm really calling you to do is to restructure your organization in a way where this is not just lip service, it's true. What could that look like? Here we go. It is a simple matter of physics. If you maintain the status quo and you serve the way you're serving for the next 5 years, you will serve X amount of people, right? We're going to keep doing what we're doing, we will serve X. Jimmy, we don't have time to build capacity. As Bob Dylan said, everybody wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die. If in that same 5 years, now wait for it, if in that same 5 years, you would quit serving kids, forget them. You'd quit serving kids for 2 years, build capacity, add new staff, and that same 5-year period, when you go back to program, you will serve 10 times more children in that 5-year period. But you will have to go through the change management process of going against self. You're going to have to let self die in order to do the next thing right so that we can go to scale. Jimmy, we can't go to scale. We're serving too many kids. So I want you to know all of this is possible. And here's what I find so fascinating, and I've never said this before on stage because it's a little bit of new material. It's not a new idea. But for-profit companies end up getting to make right choices. They end up getting to do the correct things corporately because they're looking at the bottom line. And if something is getting in the way of the bottom line increasing, they address it. We don't give nonprofits that freedom, do we? I need you to stop serving kids for a minute so that we can go to scale and actually completely eliminate all the problems these children are having in the first place. You have to be released. What's the answer? Adam Smith. None of this works if you don't believe in free market economics, okay? Within the Commonwealth, the common wheel that runs, we form partnerships, we organize these sectors, and we make apparent what Adam Smith called the invisible hand. He said, if you will involve yourself in a free market economy, if you will involve yourself in trade between nations, the invisible hand will emerge. We are going to make at NANOE the invisible hand visible. That is a little bit bold to challenge the axioms of Adam Smith and say we are going to take his invisible hand, which has brought us to this point. But I am tired of Adam Smith's hand being invisible. So here's the question. Civil society. I'm about to give you platinum. There's an organization in the United States that this month gave away 40,000 hip replacements. Can you imagine an organization? 40,000 hip, that's big, that's transformative, that's making a difference. Who is it? Redfern, who is it? That's right, Department of Health and Human Services. So don't tell me we're against government, okay? We are governed, we choose to have government. It is an income stream. Do you know there are only 7 billion people on the planet? And 6.8 billion cell phones were put into the marketplace in the last year? Do you hear me on that? 7 billion people on the planet, and there are 6.8 billion cell phones. Do you know what that means? Do you know who did that? What organization did that? I'm just going to say this one. Samsung! Listen, you can't deal with the water issue across the entire continent of Africa if you can't communicate. And our different friends here in the room who travel will say no matter what's going on, no matter what impoverished, leprous, garbage dump that you go to where people have a village, they all got a cell phone. It's the common wheel. In the next 36 months, what sector, what space in our economy, in our civil society will oversee, administrate, and spend $32 trillion? Nonprofits. Here's my point. Friends, if we're going to design a heroic mission of scale that completely eradicates a problem in a particular geographic region, We have to draw on all aspects of civil society. We have to understand the role government plays, the hip replacements. We have to understand the role the private sector plays, the cell phones. And we have to understand the power that we have and the money that we oversee. Civil society, the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. And I need us to begin to think in those three dimensions. Because you don't think outside the box. You don't think inside the box. There is no box. It is seamlessly integrated already. We must rely and draw strategically. And what if today the group of us codified a new set of best practices and each committed ourselves to being that first executive that is raised up, that new generation, that next generation of executives that has been equipped to design a heroic mission of scale that eradicates a problem so completely that money chases after it. I am asking us to go back to school and consider the dimensions that are around us that make that heroic mission possible. All of that to say in its simplest form is this: find a need and meet it, make a promise and keep it. You've already got that one down. It's already deep in your hearts. I just want to scale it. Are you ready? Remember the stamp, 1998? Remember this stamp, the only stamp, the first stamp dedicated to philanthropy, giving and sharing. So I'm living with this stamp for years. I have plate blocks, I have first day covers. I have thousands of copies of this stamp in mint condition because it celebrates the call that's on my life. There's a bee and there's a flower. Here's what I figured out. In that stamp, in that imagery, there is no giving or no sharing going on. None of it. Okay? Okay, make it plain. There's not an altruistic bone in a bee's body, and a flower doesn't even have a nervous system. Let's just start there. There's no altruism, there's no giving or sharing. But what there is going on is foraging and sex. I apologize, Bishop. The bee extracts nectar, and they go back to the honeycomb and they feed their larvae. The bee picks up pollen from the flower's male anthers. I didn't realize that the bee actually uses the pollen, though, back at the honeycomb to create a nest further for the larva. But then when it goes back out to forage, it drops off the bee pollen on the female pistil. What's the result? Reproduction. This is not giving and sharing. Here's what it is. And this is the means. I'm asking for this shift. It's not giving and sharing. It's reciprocity. It's a reciprocal nature. The reason we buy so much Coke is because we enjoy Coca-Cola or M&Ms. You heard Melinda Gates say something so ubiquitous. Charity says, in its truest, most ultimate form, if you were an individual who had a command of the scriptures, that there's no greater love than this, than for a man to lay down his life for his brother, which means we are all required at some point in our life to find somebody to die for, because we are giving Christ as that example, and I'm just promising you that model is not sustainable. And that is what we have given each other as the gift of what we call the charitable sector. What if rather, not that there isn't benevolence and altruism, and there's just all different types of giving motives, but what if we could commit to undergirding all of it with reciprocity? Reciprocity. Here's what's interesting. This is the first day cover that came out. I've had it on my desk for years. And I realized that there's the bee, there's the flower, Does that look like one big donor giving a nonprofit a handout? Or does that look like two businessmen having a win? That doesn't look like giving and sharing. That looks like reciprocity to me. Friends, the first thing that we do to a board member, not this board, first thing we do to a board member is say, would you please give me 10 hours a month, 120 hours a year? Well, that's some, I could take my volunteer and do that, my volunteer time and do that, okay? Then we say, now, you may not have known this, but because you're now a board member and you give me those 10 hours a month, I'm gonna charge you for it. Because we gotta have had 100% given, you gotta give me money. And then, you've never done fundraising, you don't wanna do fundraising, you'll never be good at fundraising, but we're gonna persecute you for the rest of the year for not doing it. That is our model. What if rather, and then we do this, and then we give them a piece of paper, and we say, you need to sign a conflict of interest policy, which codifies legally and in writing that in no way, shape, or form will there ever be any personal annulment back to you for serving and joining our cause. That is our model. It's insane, and it's not what's reflected in that handshake up there. What if over the next 2 days we can begin the thought and then gather 2 years from now of determining what reciprocity looks like? How does a person give and receive mutually in the relationship in such a way that it is such a huge win for them that they keep giving? Any numbers of ways for the relationship to be reciprocal. This is the means whereby which we could go to scale. These are some of the thought leadership issues we're going to have to tackle the next 2 days. Friends, this is not meant in any way, shape, or form to be adversarial or rebellious. We don't get any points for rising up and being unkind. We may find, though, as we set boundaries and we attempt to become all that we can be for the sake of civil society, we may find that there are other people who disagree with us, and they may not respond to us in a way that is comfortable for me. Did somebody say mercy? Oh, she just said mercy. Holy mackerel. I am a Pharisee of the Pharisees, and she just said, you give them mercy, Jimmy. And that's not condescending either. It's not, we're not meaning to be condescending. And good night in the morning, friends. We could be wrong about all this. We have to hold these big ideas in our hands loosely, okay? Now here's what gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting, because this is where it starts to get real practical. I have been waxing philosophical. I have been waxing theological. Now we're about to see, can we do any of this? And it starts with the people that are in charge of everything. The management. There is one thing all boards have in common, and it's the fact that they do not function. And that's not me saying that, okay? That's not my line. It's Drucker, Peter Drucker. Nonprofits are poorly managed because of unrealistic expectations that are placed on volunteer board members. I started to review them for you a minute ago. Give, and receive nothing in return. Let's wear you out and move on to the next person. If you are, now I'm not talking about a nonprofit executive right now. I'm talking about who's serving on a board. I know there's board members in here that are nonprofit execs. But if you are here more in the tradition of being a volunteer board member, would you honor the group? Would you stand if you are a volunteer board member? Please stand. And would you give every one of these volunteer board members a round of applause for taking their time and coming out and trying to figure this out with us? Thank you. That was just so I could know where you were all sitting so I can do this number. And what about our board members that are present? Here we go. What is boardsmanship? This is going to blow your mind. When I tell you what boardsmanship is not, it's going to blow your mind. Here's what boardsmanship is not. Boardsmanship is not volunteerism. We don't need a banquet committee of the board. We don't need a strategic planning committee of the board. Please strip out all volunteer functions from the board. We don't need a fundraising committee of the board. Please remove all volunteer functions from the board. Boom. Second, it's not governance. I'll tell you what being a governor is. You're a full-time executive, you have a cabinet of people that work for you, and you figure out how to govern. Giving 1, 5, 10 hours a week, 120 hours a year is not governing. Strip out all the volunteerism, realize that you're not governing. And if you are governing, it's because all the staff is getting with you in advance, briefing you on what to say at the board meeting because that's what they want you to say. And they are prepping you. That's not governing. Boards don't govern. And good night in the morning. It's not policy. But our board makes policy. Have you actually ever seen a board member sit down for a year and thoughtfully write and figure out a policy? Have it tested and then bring it back to board members don't write policy. Matter of fact, in this day and age, we hire CEOs with competencies in this particular area of program service. Friends, 100 years ago, here's what happened. There were some great people in Philadelphia and in New York and in our major metropolitan Northeast cities, and they were doing good work. And they didn't necessarily have an education or a background or even acumen for it. And they needed money. And the city fathers and mothers surrounded them. And they took the industrial age, Henry Ford type board model, corporate board model, and began applying it to nonprofits. And it was fine. We're grateful, and it worked. The only way the rest of these 2 days make sense as it relates to boards is if you understand that there is nothing natural about putting a committee together of individuals that you don't pay, that don't have the time. And I'm talking about the biggest boards look at Penn State University. When they had to face that whole issue with the coach and the coaches and the kids issues, this board of trustees are the most brilliant minds in the world, and they blew it for years, this board. There is just nothing correct or natural or right about a CEO being hired by a board and then the CEO having to hire consultants to train their bosses. We're going to do a board training this week. What? Now, friends, I talk about this as though it's ludicrous. It is so normative. Norman isn't even the right word. This is exactly how we do it, and it's going to take us decades to change. But I figure I got 25 years to move the needle, and we are starting here today. Well, thank you. And let me tell you what I did first. Figured out how to put together a board that actually really works. And they're here right now, and I'm going to tell you all about them. Boardsmanship is this. It is advice, and it is accountability. A board can provide me advice. And a board, instead of relying on the president or the CEO to write the reports that come to the board meeting, what kind of report is that? I get to write my own self-evaluation every time there's a board meeting and share how wonderful I am. That's our model. They can provide me advice, and they can provide me accountability, and let me show you how they do it. By having in place the proper board positions. Do you have a person on your board of directors, a single person, not 5 of them? Because by the way, working group theory says this. Any working group that has more than 5 to 7 people max is no longer a group that works. It's just a cocktail hour. Do you have one person on your board that is an enterprise expert? Do you have one person on your board that understands your program and delivers that service, is able to advise you in the actual program, your most trusted friend? Do you have a person on your board that is an expert in finance? Do you have a person on your board that understands not the law, friends? I don't need no attorneys on my board that don't understand nonprofit law. Do you have a person on your board that understands communications? I would have put communications on there, but the word was so much longer. Really it should be communications. I didn't like the way it looked visually. And do you have a person on your board that understands nonprofits? Understanding business and growing an enterprise is different than a person who understands nonprofits. So what we have here is we have a business expert, a program expert, a finance expert, a legal expert, a communications expert, and we have a nonprofit expert. In the personhood, in the personship of these men and women, which I get to serve alongside as the nonprofit expert. I have Redfern II, who put 15,000 people on the State House steps 30 years ago in the middle of the Civil Rights movement and has organized and grown enterprises around this community. I have my program director, the professor, the academician, the person who has committed her entire life to grassroots nonprofit organizations and growing them in the person of Kathleen Robinson. I have Scott Hummerson, the head of Wegner CPAs. They have 700 nonprofit clients that they do accounting for. I have my old friend Jackson Doggett from Washington, D.C., where he sets up nonprofit structures. He understands how to make sure a nonprofit is maximized, but is completely safe in its doing. I have my best friend, best man at my wedding, Honey Korngold, documentary filmmaker. Anytime it's time to message something, anytime it's time to deal with what's going on in the marketplace with pushback, I call her. She provides me great advice. And I have spent my entire 27 years, all of my adult years, I am 49 now, I have spent my entire 27 years serving the nonprofit sector. Friends, now there is a board. And you'll say, they're all your friends, Jimmy. They're all your friends, they're your cronies. Friends, you give me any board in this room and I can bamboozle them for years. This board would drop me in a New York minute because they know me if I did anything wrong. There is true accountability here. There is amazing advice. How do they do it? How do they manage properly? We comply with the IRS. They annually hire and fire the CEO. They retain a third-party auditor. They evaluate me with third-party data. And here's what you're going to love. You want to know what? You're going to love this. Here's what I've discovered over the years. Executive directors and CEOs are only going to do what they want to do. So they can say they're implementing the board's vision. But what they're doing is they're implementing their own vision, and they're just messaging it in a way where the board feels like it's theirs. So it's not at your organization, it's not about the board's vision. And board members, don't kid yourself. You can't hire a person to implement your vision. But you can hire a person that understands your mission and adheres to advancing your mission and has a vision that they've embraced in such a way that they advance it in ways that you never thought possible. This board of directors keeps us in between the lines as it relates to mission, but they support me 100% in my vision. Gabe, would you carefully and just generously pass out those envelopes? Thank you. Board members, you can even open up those envelopes. There's different numbers in there for each of you. Could you hold that envelope up and wave it just wave that envelope a little bit? Can you wave that envelope? Hey! Friends, you just witnessed board members being paid. You don't even know what to do with it yet. You don't even know what to do with it yet. I know. I'm going to explain. It's okay. I'm going to explain. It's okay for you? Friends, is this compensation? I don't know. Is it remuneration? Is it reimbursement? Is it an honorarium? This tweet came yesterday morning. I'm writing this inaugural address. This tweet comes. This comes from, and by the way, we celebrate this group. I celebrate this group. This tweet comes from the newly formed Ethics Justice League. The Ethics Justice League. And I think it is okay, as we entertain the idea of board members being paid or honored, I think it's okay that people push back. It's startling, isn't it? The National Council of Nonprofits and their CEO, Tim Delaney, was quoted when interviewed about NANOE, and he said, "They're so far outside the norms that it's startling." So, here's what the tweet was. Are we also going to talk about Nano Central's tax returns and how you pay people to be on your board? Let me set my DVR. I'm in my first Twitter war, and from what all the social media experts are telling me, this is exactly where we're supposed to be, and it's just killing me. I just want everybody to be my friend. So let's talk about what just happened. Let's talk about what just happened. How much? How much are in those envelopes, right? Here's another problem. I had an existential moment. Last week, I'm in Jackson, Mississippi with many of you, and I'm explaining what we pay our board members and why. And then the person sits and says, "But what does your board give at 100%?" So here's this existential thing. Okay, I'm going to give you a check, but I expect you to give it right back to me. Redford's having a heart attack up here. Okay. Let's just process this for a second. How much is the wrong question? The better question is, if you did pay your board members, which ones would you keep? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Boy, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Let me tell you how this works. Our bylaws call for 3 board meetings a year. You're saying, "Jim, there's only 3. I talk to this man every morning at 5 a.m. We start our day devotionally together. I spend every other day on the phone with her for hours. Each of these people, Honey Korngold, broken for good, dedicating her self-life to family-oriented films that advance philanthropy, that advance the nonprofit sector. I am so scared to death about the things that we're doing. I have a bat phone right to Jackson Doggett's attorney's desk up there in Washington, D.C. And Scott oversees nonprofit tax returns, which we just filed, and we just submitted 2 more to him. So friends, it's not about the 3 board meetings a year that our bylaws call for. It's the fact that on a daily basis, somehow, in an involuntary way, that we breathe in and out together because we're wholly taken with accomplishing something together as a group. It is very natural. So it's not that we gather 3 times a year and we don't see each other. I find myself relying on this board essentially daily, weekly. But our bylaws call for 3 meetings a year. 2 of those meetings are via teleconference. 1 of those meetings is in person. We pay $300 an hour for each board member for our teleconference, which is why our board meetings are only 15 minutes long. I mean, it's a joke, I kid. And then when the board gathers, there is a $1,000 honorarium when the board spends a whole day gathering. And then travel expenses are reimbursed. Friends, our finance committee, our board of directors, our governance, our bylaws, we're able to budget what that looks like annually. And I will let you know that each of these people have given more cash, given more time, given more investment. Do you think I could possibly pay for the work that Dr. Robinson does on all of our behalf as an academician and as a professor in the writing? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if I choose to honor them specifically for their time, and I feel in no way, shape, or form I'm doing it at the expense of the cause or the issue, actually I'm enhancing it and improving it, I just think there's a whole lot to be learned. And I can't tell you the way the thinking shifts for the CEO and for the board members when they're being honored this way. I can't begin to explain to you the numbers of ways that things change. It is all a thing of beauty, and it is all for the advancement and the expansion of the mission. I give to you, and if you would give me a round of applause, I give to you a board that works. NANOE, Board of Directors, 2017. Thank you. You don't have to sit here anymore. But thank you for sitting here. I wanted to have this. That video, can you imagine sending out a video that says, watch board members being paid, we're going to be viral in a New York minute? How did this start? I have developed 25 years ago a capacity building model with the help of other people in this room that actually is perfect. It is a perfect capacity building model that raises millions. Here's the problem. I take it to a nonprofit, 30% of them never get out of the gate. The other 30% take the model and raise more money than they've ever raised, but they don't reach goal. And then the other 30% reach goal. I'll give it to you again. We got this capacity building model, 30% fail abjectly. 30% raise more money but don't reach goal, 30% reach goal. Kind of like thirds. So I actually have a product that I come to nonprofits with that essentially has a 60% fail rate, and it's a perfect product. And it's because nonprofits are so beset with burdens and rules and regulations that don't allow them to flourish, that it attracts the wrong leadership. And today, our best practiced philanthropist panel, where we are honoring the Strickland Family Foundation, we are going to review with one of their grantees and one of their consultants who uses this model. We are going to look at the capacity building model and see what happens when a donor invests in administration. When a donor says, I'm going to restrict my gift, I'm going to restrict it to salaries. Because the number one indicator of a nonprofit's capacity to actually expand and grow its mission is its ability to add staff. I just gave you platinum, I'll say it again. The number one indicator that a nonprofit's ability and capacity to grow its mission is measured is by, is it adding more staff? So I love a donor who understands the value of growing an enterprise and says, I'm not concerned about how much money goes to the child. I'd rather know about your staff infrastructures and how can we grow them. So the best practice philanthropist panel is where we're going to discuss the model in reimagining philanthropy with a donor, a nonprofit, and a consultant that oversees it. Then the method. And it is this. How do we move the needle? Friends, what if we can take these best practices, further codify them, and already online, if we make the adjustments, there is an automated credentialing platform, certified nonprofit executive, certified development executive, and certified nonprofit consultant. What if we credentialed practitioners, vendors, volunteers, consultants, and donors with this whole new area set? It's not about watching a TED Talk, it's not about reading Jimmy's book, but rather we have codified the new best practices and then you go and you get credentialed. This is the way whereby which 25 years from now we'll be able to look back and say, here's how we move the needle. Friends, I'm Jimmy LaRose. Thanks for spending time with me today.